Good morning, YouTubers. Joe Kersey here. And now we have part 3 of August Autobiographies. This one is all about the dogs, primarily. And then we end up with a little bit of sort of Joe and Paul starting to get involved in the gay community. Alrighty, enjoy. So we're in the new place, and we've been there a month. And about second week of February of 1982, I got a call from the son of a friend of ours, who was also a friend. I'd known this guy since he was about 9 or 10, and when he called, he was sort of just out of college, or decided to stop college, or gone into the Marines and gotten out of the Marines. And so he had to have been in his, very early 20s, I think. And he said he'd gotten this dog, this chocolate Labrador dog. And it seems that the people, from whom he got this dog, had, a brother from the same litter that had been given back by the original purchaser because they just didn't like the dog, I guess. And would I be interested in giving him a call? So yeah, we gave him a call, and we talked to these folks. They were in southern Michigan, just north of Grand Rapids, and so we got in the truck the very next day and drove up there to collect this dog. And he was when we picked him up, he was about 10 and a half weeks old. Now that's a little older than sort of the standard time you pick up a dog. And he had been with another couple too for about 2.5 weeks. And but he seemed like us right off, and back in the truck we went, and back down to Columbus. We stopped every so often and walked him. Now there was snow on the ground, and it was about a foot deep, and it had a heavy crust on it. So his little, his feet, now he had big, big paws, and this was going to be a big dog. And he didn't break through the snow, so he's walking around on the snow. And we had a bit of an adventure at one rest area when a woman stopped, wanted to come and see the dog, and we'd gotten back in the truck, and so she came over to the truck, and we rolled the window down to talk with her. And I thought we'd just talk for her, and she could see the dog. She wanted to stick her head in there and interact with the dog, and so, which she did, and then the dog lunged at her because he didn't like that. She also had one of these very annoying voices. And he never, Capricorn, we named him Capricorn. The prick of the zodiac. I'm a Capricorn. And he never liked women after that. He only liked 1 or 2 women after that. He liked this very good friend of ours that we had known for many years, the daughter of a very good friend. She also, he liked the daughter, and he liked the mother. Well, and then he also liked, there were about 4 women he got along with. The rest he didn't have anything to do with, and sometimes he'd come over and take a piss on their leg. Dogs, huh? Male dogs. Well, male dogs can get away with that. We can't. Well, I guess in certain settings there are people that, sort of do that electively, but so he's a great dog, and we decided after, he was our learner dog. God bless him. We made so many mistakes. But we finally got a proper fenced-in back area for him, and now we when we both had to be gone, I built a big house out there for him, and I put a heater in it. Figured out a way to heat it so that he can't chew on the cord and that sort of thing. And so, there were times we had to just leave him out because we were going to be gone pretty much the entire, like 12, 13 hours at a stretch. Now, when we traveled, we always got we either took him with us or we always got somebody to stay at the house and take care of him. Not just check in, but stay at the house. So that always worked out well. But he was our learner dog. So we decided it would be fun to breed him, And we actually bred him 3 times. And the final time, beautiful dogs each time. Beautiful dogs. Final time I took, in lieu of payment, I took a puppy, and rather than a check, and the female was a fairly small black Labrador, and she had, I think there were like 9 puppies, and we went over to look at them, to pick out which one we wanted, and all the others are sort of clustered, wadded up together on top of each other. And here's this one, sort of this outlier dog, running around, just outside and horsing with him. And I said, that's the one I want. I want that dog. Well, they said, do you want to take him today? Well, I was surprised because this dog at this point was just about, he would be not quite 6 weeks old. And that's sort of like, a breeder no-no. But boy, I'm sure glad we got him when we did, because basically he became a little human dog. He became a little, Prometheus, that's what we named him, became a little human dog. He was a little human. He wasn't a dog. He was a little human. And Capricorn basically taught him everything he needed to know about being a dog. And the rest of what he did, he learned just by being around us. And, wow. I miss both those dogs, but I especially miss Prometheus. So let's see, Capricorn died in September 15th, 1995, the day after my son and I got back from the United Kingdom, traveling the United Kingdom for about 2 weeks. Just, he was failing rapidly when I left, and when I got back, you could see him actually, there were parts of him just actually rotting away before your very eyes, and he's walking around panting. And I finally just got him to lay down. I said, lie down. And then he died. And Pro died. Both these dogs almost made it to 14 years, though. Just about 3 months short of 14 years old. And Pro died in April 27, 1998. After in retrospect, he died of a venous and intestinal venous infarction, because he had all these little, he clearly had some of these lumps and bumps inside him. You could sort of feel them. And I imagine one of those, they get these fibrosarcomas, and this was probably some sort of mesenteric fibrosarcoma that wrapped around these, one of his splanchnic veins, killed a piece of bowel. Oh, gosh. Well, so September of 98, I said, we got to get another dog, And in retrospect, that was probably a bit too fast. But we went and got, I found another breeder closer to home here. And we got Oaklander. And Oaklander was a chocolate Labrador. He was one of the most unusual chocolate Labradors you'd ever hope to see. This dog, just to put, even though we did not overfeed this dog. In fact, unlike the first two dogs, which we could just leave, a tub of food out in the kitchen, and they'd wander over and eat whenever they wanted, and not overeat. If you did that with this dog, he would have wolfed the whole thing down. Well, in fact, when we ended up with 3 dogs, they all would have wolfed the whole thing down as fast as possible. So we ended up having to feed all 3 of these dogs individually. You put the bowls out on the back porch, widely spaced, so that they, you still had a certain amount of, one running over to the other's bowl to check out the actions. I know, anyway, he was a very big, in fact, the vet said, "Can I do a thyroid test on your dog?" I said, "Yeah, go ahead." He says, "It won't cost you anything. It's for a study. Michigan State's doing a study." Turns out it was normal. It was normal thyroid function. She was very suspicious of me. They also smoked. Well, her brother didn't smoke a lot of dope, but she and the rest of her staff smoked a lot of dope. I mean, you could almost get a contact high going into that office. Fortunately, the brother did all the operating, so. We took Prometheus, who was the second dog we got. Well, no, the third dog we got. And when he was a puppy, and when he was being examined, he climbed up my back. He climbed off the exam table up my back and sat on the top of my head. And this woman vet, sort of took a step back, and she says, "Oh, wow, you're wearing your dog like a hat." Oh, that was Shackleton. That was Shackleton did that. So, we got Oaklander, and then a year later, just about a year later, October of '99, this friend of mine had a English setter that, he was into hunting dogs and quail, and he'd get hunting dogs, and he had this hunting dog, and he didn't like the way she hunted. So, around that place, if this guy doesn't like the way you hunt, the sentence is death. I said, don't kill the dog. Just give me the dog. And he did. And really, nice female. I never thought I'd get a female dog, and I can tell you I'm not going to get another one. But she was a good soul, and but she had a ventral hernia, and she hadn't been neutered, and she was at this point she was about a year and a half old, and so I went down and had the non-smoking brother fix these things, which he did, and then there was a recovery period, that you got to sort of keep them moderately still. So we put up a little 4x4x4 thing out here with one of these dog glues. I put a heater in it too, since it was like third week in November, and so she didn't like necessarily doing her business in there, and I'd always clean that out. But Oaklander would go out there and sleep by her. He'd sleep by the side of the enclosure. He took care of her. They really loved each other. And so then I said, well, see, I wanted to have 2 Labradors. I still wouldn't mind having 2 Labradors again at some point. Bearing in mind that at this stage of my life, I'm going to have to be sort of sure that I can, have somebody on tap that might have to finish up taking care of these dogs if I cack off. So this same guy that from whom I got Heidi, who gave us Heidi, discarded Heidi upon us, I guess would be better to say. He had another dog. He had a yellow Labrador, and this dog had some sort of elbow problem, or so. I think he'd run over it with a tractor or some damn thing, and or maybe he got stomped by one of the horses. I don't know. Anyway, he needed help moving the dog down to the vet clinic, and so I went over and we put the thing in the back of my truck. Hell, the guy had like 3 trucks. I don't know why he didn't just do it himself, but I was glad to do it. Oh, that's because I had a cover. I had a cover on my truck, and it was a little smaller and a little easier to manipulate down in that entryway to this vet clinic. So we went down there, and while we were sort of sitting there waiting in the lobby, to get sort of the word of the day on this dog, and there was a couple in there that had a really sweet-natured, and that's what attracted me to it, the sweet nature of this, about a 4-month-old, 5-month-old black Labrador. And this dog was in there, had some sort of cyst on its nose, and they were in there to get the cyst off. And they were actually over from West Virginia to have this done. And we got talking, and I got telling about the dogs, and they said, well, the one, who's the mother of the one that I was looking at, says we're going to breed her again around September, somewhere in there, and late August, and that's when she should come into heat, and we'll breed her. And if you, are interested, we can give you a call, and you can come over and, see what's what. And so I agreed to that, and there was about a 5 or 6 month gap there, and got a phone call, and said, she's had the pups, and she described them to me, says, I said, well, I'd like a black male, and so we went over there on December 23rd of December 23rd of 2000. He was born on Guy Fawkes Day, November 5th, 2000. And creatures moving about. I hear rustling. It was 7 degrees below zero, and so we took Oaklander with us. We left Heidi in the big dog cage at home inside, and went over there and picked up this dog, and I named him Shackleton after the Antarctic explorer, and this dog never spent a day away from me, except for one time when he had a colonic obstruction, a brief colonic obstruction, because he ate a very large pork shoulder bone and got it impacted up there. I tried to dig the thing out, and I thought, well, I'm going to injure this dog. I'm going to have to take this dog down to the vet, and they kept him overnight. They were able to flush it out without operating on him, and that's the only time I ever spent away from him. He was right next to me all the time, and I mean at night, the whole bed, just constantly wonderful. Well, inevitably, as dogs do, they die, don't they? And Oaklander died March 25th, 2010. Interestingly, Heidi died, just got the dwindles and died. Heidi got the dwindles and died March 25th, 2011. And Shackleton didn't even make it to 12. He died at the age of 11 and a half. May 21st, 2012. I think I said Heidi died in 2011. It took me, I'm still not really over it, but I stayed awake, drinking, recording, putting videotapes on the DVD for 3 straight days after that dog died. That's the state of mind I was in. Well, that gets me, well, not to get too fired up about it, but I guess it's a good thing I can actually sort of talk about it. But it was great. When we'd go on vacation, of course, we took the dogs with us because we'd put them in the truck. And we'd go up to Michigan and either trailer camp or tent camp, and the dogs can stay in the back of the truck at night, and during the day, we're walking around with them and doing things with them, and it was great. I mean, it was a lot of fun. Now, 3 dogs. That gets a little logistically problematic. You've got, particularly when Heidi was the English setter female, and she had this really high pitched bark, and she wasn't shy about deploying that, and that can sort of be a bit problematic in a campground setting. So, well, it was fun. We had a lot of good trips, and then I bought 100 acres of sort of this waste ground down in Vinton County, which is it's about 110 miles southeast of here, and in southern Ohio. And I had this old beat up travel trailer, and there's a lot of furnace tape holding that thing together, and we'd go down there, and you could shoot. You could set up long range targets. And they could do long range riflery and long range pistol. With handgun shooting, and you could put the truck in 4-wheel and do very foolish things, and it was a lot of fun. And so we had people would come down with us, and some of them would wander off back in the woods and tent camp and that sort of thing. We'd make a fire, sit around outside and drink and tell each other lies. And of course the dogs were always with us. There's when we were shooting, we'd put the big ear protectors on the dog. So they'd be sitting there with their big ear protectors on, and while they normally didn't like you to horse around with their heads with stuff on their heads, they tolerated that because they didn't like gunfire. Now the other 3 dogs, the last set of the 3 dogs, every single one of them loved gunfire, and whenever I brought down one of the shotguns or brought one of the shotguns out here, they just went nuts. They loved it. They're scanning the skies. They're looking to see what I may be going after or what I'm looking for. So it was a bit of a different culture with that 3rd group. Well, we had moved out here, and that sort of gives you the whole dog tale, and so it's like, well, Joe, what'd you guys do? You both worked. Paul was still working at General Motors. No, let's see. Yeah, he was still working at General Motors. And Of course, I was, going to the hospital every morning around 6:30. Well, I would leave at 6. You get down there at 6:30. As I said, I bought the house the farthest out I could be before, so I could be down there, if they called me in at night. So we were working, but there were some nights, especially weekend nights, if I didn't have to work on Saturday or Sunday. We'd go out. We'd go out Friday night, or we'd go out Saturday night, and we'd go down to the bars. Where we met, and other bars, and occasionally we'd have some three-ways. We'd pick up somebody and have a three-way. Occasionally, one of us would pick one up, and the guy'd be in our bed, sort of having a two-way, but the other one's sort of there. I can't say that happened a lot. It probably happened about over the next 5 or 6 years, maybe about 7 times, something like that. That's a lot of fun. It certainly can be, if everybody's on board for it. And we basically were. We each were, basically. And there was an organization that had just recently started around, I think it started around 1981. It's called Stonewall Union in Columbus. It was a, gay rights organization. And it, like all young organizations, it sort of struggles for, funding. And I'd met a couple of people involved with it, and they seemed fairly sensible as far as, what they were trying to do and how they were going about it. And so I started giving them money. So I think over the course of about 3 years, I ended up giving these guys somewhere between like $7,500 and $9,000. I know I bought their first set of computers for them. Of course, and those were very early computers, because we're talking around 1980, 83, 84 type stuff. And now it's a very prosperous, thriving organization. It has been for many, many years. So I was on their board for a while, and I'm not a good board member. That was pointed out to me numerous times. Well, what? I thought you wanted my ideas. No, I just want more money. Well, give me my money. So that was thing, and then there was a Paul had a friend. His first name was Richard, and he had known this guy off and on before he met me. This guy, originally came from Jackson, Ohio, and he'd hitchhike up to Columbus at night, on weekends to go to the bars, when he's like 17. And he had a thing for like truck drivers and, heavy sort of, type stuff. And eventually eventually he decided to move to Columbus, and he said, could he stay with us for a while he looked for a place and found a job? And I said, yes, sure. And so we actually had him stay in the north bedroom. Because quite honestly, this guy had been around so much, I didn't know what I'd catch from him. So if you ended up doing anything with this guy, you always want to be sure that you're not getting a lot of bodily fluid exchange. He had really horrible teeth. And so finally I said, why don't you just go to the dentist now? Pay for it. So he had a lot of fillings and he didn't need any major bridge work or anything, but he had sort of a mouth tidying up, and he looked a lot better. Hell, he felt a lot better because you got all that infection and crap out of it, So, well, I guess lowered the general level of infection. Well, so one night he picked up this guy and he brought him home, and he liked to tie guys up in the north bedroom, and he had tied this guy to the bed. Now the bed was just a standard wooden frame bed. Obviously there's four corners, so you can tie stuff to four corners on this frame, and among which was this guy, and there was you could hear all this slapping, and moaning, and groaning, and carrying on, and then all of a sudden there's this big crash and thump. They'd broken the bed. They'd broken the bed frame. The bed proper was still okay. The mattress and box springs were fine, but the frame was total. I didn't even go in and check. I just waited until they came out of the room the next morning. I said, that sounded like a lot of fun last night. Well, Richard finally found a job and got his own apartment, and we'd go down there. We'd go down there on Sunday afternoons because he had one of the other bars was real close to his place. We'd go up there and horse around a little bit, again with no exchange of precious bodily fluids, and then go down to this bar for the afternoon, and happy. They had a buffet. People are milling around up close to each other. It's fun, isn't it? And so, well, we did that for a while, and then one night, if right at that time, and we're talking around 1980, 84 at this point. No, we're still 32. Yeah, I'm 32. Paul's 30, and. Sort of the tradition was if you closed the bars, you went to this restaurant called the Village Junction, which was basically a kind of cross between a diner and one of these sort of sit-down, low-budget family restaurants. And it specialized in breakfast 24 hours. So, basically the traditional thing that the guys would order when they went in there was, you had steak and eggs, and they had these things called tater tots. So they're just little round, breaded potatoes. They're not quite. They don't quite rise to the level of French fries, and they're not deep fried. They're actually heated on a tray, baked, so to speak. But then they poured brown gravy over the whole mass. Oh man, and big pieces of buttered toast, thick buttered toast to dip all the stuff in. It was great, and we'd go down there, and there was always a line. I mean, always a line. And we went there so often, they just let us in. Just to give you an idea of what we were doing. And so they let us in, and they gave us a table by the window. Basically, they'd let us sit wherever we wanted. I said, I want to sit by the window. And there's this guy, and it was starting to rain. And we saw this guy, and he's just looking so miserable. And he's just, the guy basically he's in this light jacket, and it was moderately cold out. And we beckoned, we said, come on in. I went and got the person to let him in, ahead of the line. And come back here and sit. And we gave him something to eat. And his name was Eric. And it seems that Eric was going through the throes of a divorce, and his soon-to-be ex-wife had kicked him out. And he was at moderately loose ends. Now Eric, Now, he was at loose ends. So he ended up staying with us for about 9 or 10 months. And he actually slept in our bed with us. He wasn't really gay, but he'd let you fool around with him, and occasionally he could be prevailed upon to fool around too. He was a hot number. I have to say, I really had the hots for Eric. His body, not so much his head. The brain's the biggest sex organ. Plus, he smoked like a fucking chimney. It was just awful. I have since sort of instituted no smoking policy in the house. I don't care if you smoke out in the deck. I don't care if you smoke around me. But not in the house. There have been 3 or 4 times since I've instituted that policy. I've allowed that to be broken transiently. But anyway, so Eric stayed with us, and he actually ended up going down to the Outer Banks with us one year. We went down there to the Outer Banks of North Carolina 3 years in a row. Well, 2 years in a row. And he went down with us on the second trip. And it was fun. It was fun. Anyway, he eventually wandered off. He found a proper job, wandered off. And nice. I mean, he was a nice guy. I mean, he was an honest guy. It wasn't like he tried to come in here and rip things off surreptitiously. What he liked to do is he'd sit and play all my LPs and make mixtapes off the with the cassette tape recorder. Then play them at top volume. He seemed to enjoy doing it. That kind of gives you an idea of what the kinds of things we were doing. But yeah, all that fizzled out basically around 1985. I mean that just that sort of wildness. We still have a couple of friends in Fort Wayne. We don't see them very often. Haven't seen them for quite a while actually. But we'd go over there and spend weekends together sometimes. That's great. I mean, great. These guys got a lot of action, and they didn't even live in the city. They got a lot of action in the city. They moved out into the country. They got even more action, which was astonishing. They loved to take pictures. Boy, all you had to do was leaf through that photograph. Well, time moves on, and so will I here now for a moment.